Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 28. I can't stand digital filmmaking. It's like television in public. Quentin Tarantino.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome to a flicker-free episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I'm your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Don't forget to head over to freefilmbook.com. That's freefilmbook.com to download your free audiobook from Audible. And the show is sponsored today by USC Film School's only online digital course, How to Direct the Actor by the legendary Nina Foch. You can head over to indiefilmhustle.com/USC to download that. So today, guys, with the Hateful Eight coming out in a few weeks, and Quentin Tarantino being so adamant about shooting film, and he actually has brought back an amazing format, basically 70 millimeter. Ultra Panavision hasn't been used since the 60s, and he's been able to bring back this beautiful format for Hateful Eight, and is doing a road show around the country. So for people who want to see it in film in this massive format, they can see it in that format. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between film and digital, and this has been debated to death, so I'm not going to do that. But for a lot of people who are not familiar with actually shooting film and the differences, I just wanted to kind of shed a little light on this. But before we do, I want you to hear what Quentin Tarantino himself has to say about the process.
And you're not too sure about the digital era, are you, in terms of, as opposed to the old day of going to the cinema and the widescreen and so on? The digital era...
At least it does nothing for me. It does nothing for me. I mean, I actually think I'm getting gypped when I go to a movie and I realize it's either been shot on digital or being projected in digital. I mean, some people feel differently about this, but I think it's the death keel. I think it's the death rattle. And, I do. And I also have even another whole aspect about it. I've always believed in the magic of movies.
Yeah.
And to me, the magic of movies is connected to 35 millimeter. Because everyone thinks, you can't help but think, that when you're filming something on film, that you're recording movement. You're not recording movement. You are just taking a series of still pictures. There's no movement in movies at all. They are still pictures. But when shown at 24 frames a second, through a light bulb, it creates the illusion of movement. So thus, as opposed to a recording device, when you're watching a movie, a film print, you are watching an illusion. And to me, that illusion is connected to the magic of movies.
Now, that was Quentin from a press conference he did a few years back when he was asked about digital versus film. Now, I'm a guy who shot a lot of film in my day. My demo reel was shot on 35 millimeter. I've shot 8 millimeter, 16 millimeter. In film school, I learned 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter. So, I changed the film in the bag. I did the whole gambit on film, and I love film. I think film is a wonderful medium, and I don't think film should die. I think film should always be an option for filmmakers because it does have something very unique. It has something very specific about it. Now, with that said, now when you're shooting, I've now come over to the other side and have now shot a ton more digital than I've ever shot film, and it has opened up my ability to tell stories and be able to shoot more and be able to do more in post production because of the new digital technology. When shooting film, you've got that whole mystery of like, oh, maybe I got it in the shot or not. I don't know. Maybe we'll see when we get it back from dailies and all this kind of stuff. That's great. And but it always used to frustrate me. Video assist was the only thing I had at the time. And even then you really don't know what the film actually looked like until you get it into the lab. And just so you know, when I shot my demo reel, I actually sent up all my footage to a lab up in New York called DuArt. And DuArt, their machine broke while it was developing my film. And I lost my entire production. I lost all of it. That was thousands of dollars that I lost, and they were very nice, and they gave me free development and free film, but I didn't really pay for the production. But I did what, it was all it is. But those are things that happen, just like you would, lose a hard drive nowadays. But to get back to what Quentin Tarantino was doing now with The Hateful Eight, the video that's attached to the show notes of this episode, he does this entire, they do basically a 10-minute explanation of what they're doing with how they went back to find the camera and the lenses that were sitting in a corner somewhere, and they had to go do tests and stuff. But the magic that he's going to be able to capture with that, and we'll all see on Christmas Day when it comes out how it's going to look and what it's going to be like. But I think there needs to be champions like Tarantino. And by the way, Tarantino is not the only director doing this. Christopher Nolan, JJ Abrams shot the new Star Wars all on 35 millimeter. Wes Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, Darren Aronofsky shot The Wrestler on 16 millimeter. There's a lot of directors holding on to film because it is a viable shooting format, especially at the studio level where they can afford the costs to create, the workflow for that. Maybe at the independent level is much more difficult. But with that said, in a few weeks, I'm going to have, probably in a month or two, I'm going to have a guest on. I just did the interview last week with. Her name is Kansas Bowling. She's 19 now, but she was 17 when she made her first feature film, and she shot it completely on 16 millimeter. And all she does is shoot film. She won't shoot digitally. She doesn't like the way it looks. She wants to shoot film and wants to keep that format alive because when you hear her, she's kind of like a female mini Quentin Tarantino. She knows so much about her genre of film from the olden days that she could just tell that she has a love for film, just like Tarantino does. It's something that I hope stays around for a long time. I think we're losing more and more of the artists and the technicians who understand film, who know film, because they're not teaching it in schools anymore. It's becoming kind of like a lost art in a lot of ways. It's older dogs like myself and guys ahead of me who've been working with film all their life, like my friend Suki, who was on episode 9. We were talking that one of the reasons he got onto American Horror Story was because he shoots film. He knows how to shoot film. He shot lots of film, and he is actually, that whole show is shot on film. And the things that they're able to do with that, because they shoot film and to be able to do in-camera tricks and things in development, things that you can't do digitally and not able to do digitally. Now, a lot of people say the warmth and the different vibe and the psychological thing, all this is great. It's the same conversation. When I was in school, this digital analog debate was going on for music, like, oh, vinyl or oh, digital. But now now vinyl's coming back up because everyone's like, wow, it sounds so much better. I'm not sure if that's going to be the way it is with digital in the future. I really don't. I don't see that happening anytime. I think just like vinyl and MP3s, they live together. The digital world is much larger than the vinyl world, but the vinyl world's starting to come up, and there are people who are interested in seeing that and watching that. So I think film is going to become that kind of niche within the film industry. So for those of you who have never shot film, I wanted to kind of take you through the process really quickly. So you shoot 35 millimeter, you go out and get your stock of film. That stock of film will be dependent on the amount of light you want to expose in the film. So a lower ASA, like a 50 or 100 would be for outside stuff that there's a lot of light. So it absorbs it needs a lot of light to be able to get a good exposure, but it's very fine. So if you have a lot of light outside and you shoot with that kind of format, you're going to be a nice, clean, grainless image, kind of, getting closer to the digital side of it. Now, if you go higher, like to the 800s, or I think even to 1,000, I forgot where they actually ended up stopping doing that, then you could shoot in low light. Now, the legendary Stanley Kubrick shot Barry Lyndon, some scenes in Barry Lyndon with some lenses that he got from NASA on a very as advanced of a film stock as they had at the time. Nowadays they have film stock that is very, very fast and can absorb a lot of light, but back then they didn't. So that's kind of what you're dealing with film stock is concerned. So now you get the film, you get a camera. Let's say you're going to shoot it on an Arri or a Panavision. You load the camera up, and you only have 10-minute rolls. That's it. You only got 10 minutes per roll to shoot what you got to do. That's why the long takes of yesteryear only lasted around 10 minutes. That's why Alfred Hitchcock's Rope was basically 9 long takes edited together very interestingly and very cleverly to hide the edits. But until digital came along, there was no ability to make long take films or long take shots past 10 minutes. So once you shoot at 10 minutes, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. You sync it up with audio later on, because you can't record audio directly into the camera, but you can sync it up. So once you have it, and by the way, when you're on set, you have to have a guy on set with a bag to be able to change the mag. The mag can't see any light. Film can't see any light, because if it sees light, it ruins it. So you have to put it in a black bag or into a tent, go in there, change the film out blind, because you can't do it unless you're in a dark room, which on set you generally aren't. You've got to do it blindly. So you have to learn how to do this blindly. As I'm telling you this, it sounds crazy, but I remember doing this in school. So you go in there, you have to feel things around. You got to change the mag, make sure it's all tight, get it out, tape it up. All this stuff has to be done just to be able to get the image. So let's say we've shot the whole film now. We've done everything perfectly. Now you send it off to the lab. The lab will develop it. Then after the lab develops it, you would take it over to a telecine suite. Now, the olden days, you would be able to edit on film. Take the negative and edit it and make a print of it, and then edit it, and then someone would go back and edit off of edge codes. Each film, all the film stocks have different edge codes inside of it, so they literally would go by eye, edge it out. Funny is that when I went to film school, they actually taught us backwards. They taught us nonlinear editing, then online editing, then film editing. And when I literally went to film and I was cutting, I looked at the teacher, I'm like, you want me to cut this with a razor blade and then tape it together with tape? What are we, the Flintstones? This is crazy. This is barbaric. Because I didn't understand. And it is, I mean, for someone who's never understood or never seen anything like that, it did look barbaric, even for me back then. So can you imagine what, someone who's never even seen a film camera or shot film or edited film would look at it going, you got to be kidding me. So it was a very slow process doing that. And by the way, the reason why in all your editing systems, it's called a bin is because they actually hung film takes in bins, like literally hang them physically, and they would be called film bins. So that's when Avid and everybody else came out. They all call it bins because they're all still trying to go back to that, use that old terminology. So let's say we're not going to edit in film. Let's say we're going to do it a digital way, the current way. So you would shoot it, you would bring it back to a telecine, they would scan it all in digitally. At that point, you have it all digital, and it's going to stay digital, and then now you can do all your workflow, visual effects, everything you want to do all digitally. No problem at all. When you're all done, you color grade it digitally, you get it all done, you're out the door, bam, bam, boom, you're good. When I did my demo reel, I actually took the negative. I had to actually color grade all the raw footage, then transfer all that raw footage color graded onto a tape, Beta SP or Digibeta tape, and then go off and digitize that into an Avid and then edit it together to get my final piece. So there's a few different workflows, but as you can see, film is much more convoluted and currently much more expensive because a lot of the infrastructure that was in place is now no longer there. So when there was 10, 15 labs in LA, I think there's 1 or 2 now in LA that can do this kind of work anymore. So I hope this kind of gives you a little bit of an understanding of what the workflow is. I'm no expert by any stretch. I'm definitely not, the old pro that's been shooting film for years and decades or anything like that. This is my experience with it, and I kind of glossed over it. There's a lot more detail involved with it, but it is a lot more convoluted, and it is a lot more time-consuming to be able to do this. Once you shoot the film, you won't know what to do. You would send the dailies out to the lab. The lab would develop it and then send it back to you, and then you would at lunch on the film set go and watch your dailies with the producer and see what you had from the day before. So now you have it instantly. Now you can literally just watch it on the monitor, rewind it right then and there, and you'll know what you've got or you didn't get instantly. So with that, digital is obviously one of the many things that is wonderful about digital filmmaking. But that gives you kind of a quick overview of what it was like shooting film. I know for the younger guys in the audience, it sounds like we were crazy. But you know what? They've been doing films like that for over 100 years, doing it like that. So it's only within the last So, I mean, honestly, it's basically episode 2 of Star Wars. Star Wars episode 2 was, I think, one of the first films shot completely digitally. So, it hasn't been that long that we've been doing digital, but it's been growing so fast, and it now completely dominates the market. So just wanted to, guys, give you a little bit of an idea for anybody in the audience who had never experienced shooting film before. What Quentin's doing is remarkable. I applaud him for fighting so hard to get film in the spotlight again. And I think because he's doing this with the Hateful Eight, that is starting the conversation over again. If you guys get a chance, you have to watch a documentary called Side by Side, who was directed by Keanu Reeves. And he goes around and interviews the top directors in the world talking about this specific reason, like film or digital, film or digital, film or digital. And it's a fantastic documentary. I'll leave a link for it in the show notes. It really, really is worth your time to watch it if you are interested in this. If you guys ever do get a chance to shoot film and you have that opportunity, whether it's like shooting 8mm, Super 8mm, just to have that experience is so much fun and so enlightening as a filmmaker to be able to shoot on film. Because if you guys call yourself filmmakers, you should actually one day shoot film. It's always a wonderful thing. And if you want to shoot Super 8, if you go to Super 8 Sound, I think it's super8sound.com. I'll put it in the show notes. They have an entire ecosystem of cameras you can rent or buy. The film package is already done, and you can also do post-production with them as far as transferring it through telecine. Now, in my day, I've been in a lot of telecine sessions where you actually sit down, you put the roll of film up, and you run it in, and you put it in digitally and scan it in. And the times I did it, we didn't even scan it in. There was no scanning in at the time. It was more just transferring it to a beta SP or a digibeta, and now they would transfer it to an HDSR or something like that. But now they would actually scan it in digitally. You don't even have to go to tape, of course. So bottom line is, guys, I think film, if you haven't a chance to experience film, experience it. It is a magical thing. If I had a chance to shoot film again, I probably would, but it really would depend on the film and the project. I really have gotten used to the digital workflow. I love the images that come out of digital cameras, the red, the airy, the black magic. They're just absolutely stunning images, and the freedom that you get to do with playing with it. That's why, amazing directors like David Fincher have adopted it. Steven Soderbergh adopted it so quickly, and they just love the freedom that you have and the instantaneous ability to just see what you've got, rewind it, look at it, and go, okay, rewind it, listen to me, and see what you've got and be able to adjust on time, on set, right at that moment. It's wonderful. So digital has its place. There's no question about it, and there's no question that digital will be the future. It is the future. It is now. It is what it is. It's going to be here for a long, long time. But we should not abandon film, and that is my main point here. And I think that's the main point of Christopher Nolan, JJ Abrams, Tarantino, and so forth, about why it is so important to keep that heritage and keep that ability to do things on film alive. So, by the way, right now, as of this date in 2015, film is still the only way to archive motion pictures over the course of 50 years, 100 years. There are no hard drives that can do it yet. Solid state hard drives are still up in the air. They don't know how long they're going to last because they're still fairly new technology. So film celluloid is the only way to archive film, a known way to archive film properly, that you can, in 100 years, 150 years, you can still bust it out, put it on, throw some light through a projector, and be able to get an image. And that's something digital has not caught up with yet. So before you start ragging too heavily on film, all your favorite movies are still being archived on film celluloid because it is the only option out there. But I hope you guys, if you guys ever do get a chance to shoot film, please do so. It is a magical, magical experience. So please don't forget to head over to filmmakingpodcast.com, and leave us an honest review on iTunes. It helps us out a lot. It helps the show out a lot too. And if you're interested in any of the things I've talked about in the show, head over to get the show notes at indiefilmhustle.com/028. There's links, video clips, all of that stuff is in the show notes. So thank you guys again for listening. And guys, do me a favor. If you actually see Hateful Eight in 70 millimeter or on or a film print of it, let me know what you guys think. I'm dying to hear what you guys really feel and what emotions you felt when you watched it. Was it crappy? It was like, oh my God, is the image flickering? All this kind of stuff. Leave it in the comments in the show notes. Leave it in the comments or drop me a line on Facebook or on Indie Film Hustle and let me know what you think. So keep that dream alive, keep that hustle going, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.